I'm sorry I wasn't able to get a video up earlier in the week. As you may hear, I am suffering from a cold and I apologize for the stuffiness in my voice. I hope you're enjoying reading the Aslan book and I hope you're preparing for your final things in our class. I wanted to point out a few more resources in the area of Islam for you. I've pulled several books off my shelves here, some of which you may know already and some of which you may not know, depending upon which classes you've taken at APUS. Some books that I can recommend. The Warriors of the Prophet by Mark Hubband, which talks about different kinds of fundamentalisms that are taking place in Islam. We have a book on Islam by Karen Armstrong, which is a short popular history kind of text. We have a book on approaching the Quran, which is translated by Michael Sells. There are a lot of different versions of the Quran that are out there, though, and of course in Muslim ideas there are no adequate translations of the Quran, but that holds true in a lot of different religions as well for different reasons. Even though we're not talking about it in the context of this class so much because it is religions of the Middle East, there is a book by Bernard Lewis called Islam in the West, which I can recommend. If you take the Islam classes at APUS, some of these books will be on the syllabus that are there. And another translation of the Quran that I can recommend comes from the Penguin Press, and the translator here is N.J. Daywood, who is actually an English scholar, but he was born in Baghdad back when it was still in its colonial times. There are other books. Thomas Lippmann has a book on understanding Islam, which talks about both the theology and the politics and various cultural aspects. When I was an undergraduate taking an Islam class, we used the book Ideals and Realities of Islam. You can find this actually for a very, very low price on Amazon at different times. It is by Saeed Hossein Nasser, and he was a leading light in the West on explaining Islam to people in accessible terms. And I think this book, it's actually a pretty short book, but it's well written and covers the bases quite a lot. So I recommend this very, very highly. It will go into practices, it will go into legalities, it will talk about the Sufis, it will talk about the history. If this book were still available in print, it would be one that I would be using in this course. Then there is a popular history by Fred Hill and Nicholas Audi called History of the Islamic World, and I enjoyed this book. A lot of books I learned from. This one I actually enjoyed reading, and it covers different aspects of just the general flow of history of Islam, so I can recommend this one. If you want to get into very deep detail, we have Lapidus's History of Islamic Societies, History of Islamic Societies. Quite a mammoth work. It was done back in the 1960s, and it was republished then again in the 1980s, but it covers quite a bit of the history into a good detail. And then there is the Oxford History of Islam by John Esposito, and this one is an encyclopedic trek through the history of Islam. So those are all different kinds of sources that I can recommend for you to follow up on if you want to get into more depth and detail on Islam. I know that we have several courses here at APUS that you can do Islamic studies either from a political aspect or historical aspect or other aspects too. In case you're not going to go into those, these are some resources that I thought would be good to recommend, and they're generally available in libraries in addition to on Amazon. In terms of Islam in the Middle East, there are places outside the Middle East that have Islamic cultures, but the Muslim society really still is primarily a Middle Eastern culture, unlike Christianity and Judaism, which have taken themselves far afield from the Middle East. So we don't separate a lot out of culture and the Muslim religion itself. That being said, there is no such thing as one uniform Middle Eastern culture. Those of you who have been to the Middle East will know that there are vast differences, sometimes even between different areas of Iraq, much less having gone from Pakistan to Iran to Iraq to Saudi Arabia to Egypt to Algeria and Morocco. I've noticed major differences. If you're looking for them, you'll find them. From the West, we tend to ignore a lot of the differences that are there. Aslan has a very personal view that's out there in terms of what he sees Muslim culture being. Another book that I can recommend, I think I may have mentioned this in the course materials already, Benazir Bhutto's book. This is her book called Reconciliation, Islam, Democracy in the West. And she wrote this shortly before she was assassinated, not too long ago, about a year and a half ago now. But she goes through this book and looks at aspects of the Muslim theology and the Muslim philosophy that can be applied towards a pluralistic society, a democratic society, a westward-leaning society. And one of the interesting facets in a lot of the Muslim countries is that there are a lot of people in those countries that look towards the West with interest and even admiration, even if in their official guise they don't, the nations don't necessarily always play friendly. One case in point there would be Iran, where the people tend to be very Western leaning even if their leadership is not. So I invite you to look at those kinds of things as well as you're looking at the materials for this week. And again, I'm sorry for my cold, and if I'm not making myself very clear or understandable, I hope you'll understand. Thank you.